Today's Federalism. In Federalist Number 45, James Madison argued that under the proposed Constitution, the states will retain a very extensive portion of active sovereignty. More specifically, he notes that the powers delegated by the proposed Constitution to the federal government are few and defined. Those which are to remain in the state governments are numerous and indefinite. The former will be exercised principally on external objects, as war, peace, negotiation, and foreign commerce, with which last the power of taxation will, for the most part, be connected. The powers reserved to the several states will extend to all the objects which, in the ordinary course of affairs, concern the lives, liberties, and properties of people, and the internal order, improvement, and prosperity of the state. How well does today's federalism match Madison's description of the federal system the Constitution would create? That's one of your tasks for your discussion, so let's pay attention. Funded and unfunded mandates, national grants and aid, and preemption all foster interdependency and interconnectedness of national, state, and local governments, intergovernmental relations, that make it hard to distinguish national policy responsibilities from state and local policy responsibilities. Madison's argument that the distinction between national and state government is clear does not hold up in today's reality of the U.S. federal system in action. So think layer cake versus marble cake. Intergovernmental relations can play out as cooperation when the national and state governments agree on a goal and the means to accomplish it. For example, state governments are willing to compete for federal education reform grants, race to the top and respect, because they agree with the national government that public education needs to be improved. At the same time, state and local governments lobby Congress to ensure that the federal grants provided them with discretion over how to spend the money on education reform, an area of policy that the Constitution reserves for the states. Intergovernmental relations can be coerced by national government mandates through strings attached to federal grants or implementation of an enumerated or implied power. If the state or local governments do not agree with or do not have the funding to pay for the action they are required to take. For example, the 1984 National Minimum Drinking Age Act mandated that any state that did not raise its minimum purchase and public possession of alcohol age to 21 years would lose 10% of its highway federal grants in aid. By 1988, all states had laws setting the minimum drinking age to 21. The national government can push state and local governments aside if it preempts them with a national policy that is more stringent than the states on an enumerated or implied policy matter. For example, Colorado recently battled the national government over the rules restricting road building in national forests. The U.S. Forest Service argued that Colorado's plan failed to protect adequately the environment, and therefore Colorado would have to comply with the more stringent federal restrictions. We have seen state and local governments take policy matters into their own hands, even matters that the national government claims sovereignty over when they believe the national government is not fulfilling its responsibilities. Several states, beginning with Arizona, as well as numerous local governments, have passed policies aimed at deterring illegal immigration, justifying their policies by arguing that the national government is not fulfilling its responsibilities. At the same time, numerous state governments are lining up to battle the national government over the legal definition of marriage by enacting laws allowing same-sex couples to marry. When one level of government thinks that another level of government is encroaching on their sovereignty, they turn to the courts. Ultimately, through lawsuits, the U.S. Supreme Court interprets the Constitution's distribution of sovereignty. The heated conversation about the proper interpretation of the federal system of government created by the U.S. Constitution continues today.